Hello. In Angular framework there is two ways of working with HTML form. This is so-called template-driven approach and model-driven approach. In this video we are going to talk about template-driven approach. So we start from adding to our project new region edit component. We can do this by running the command ng generate component, then we indicate folder, region, and after slash name of the component, region edit component. Then let's add our component to the routing. Open routing, our region routing module, and add following row to the routes array. We indicate path as edit/id parameter of the region, and in this case we will display a region edit component. Also make some changes in regions component. Here we import our in declarations array we add our region edit component to use it next, and we also import forms module. We will use it while working with template driven approach of creating HTML5 forms. Great, then we have to work on the component itself. Let's open the component class, region edit component, and place here the following code. First of all, we will have property of the class edit region, where we with the type of region interface, and here we will place data of current region what we will edit. In constructor we inject two services. This is region data service, from which we will get the data of current editing region, and this is activated route, from which we will get ID from current region. In ng-on-init event we get current region from the route, then we get the data of this route from the region data service and place it in our first we place it in constant. If something we receive from the service, we write it to our edit region field of the class. And finally, in the template of our new component, our edit region component, we place HTML form, as you can see. In this form will be three elements. Two elements are the inputs. In this input we will display and edit name of region and description of region. And the third component, the third HTML element, will be button, by clicking on which we will submit our HTML form. Pay attention that we bind our input fields with values of our edit region property of the class by using two ways binding ng model, banana in the box. And the last thing we need to do is adding a link to redirect to this new component of editing a region, current region, region list element. For this we open our region component HTML and add the button edit, and by clicking on this button we have to execute edit method of region class. Let's open region class and add this edit method. Here we will check if this region is filled, and if it is, we navigate to route edit and pass to this route parameter equals to current region ID. So let's try our changes out to make sure that everything works correctly. For this we in separate console window run ngserve, and in internet browser we have by localhost 4200 port we have our project. Let's go to regions list, select some element and press our new edit button that we added recently, and by clicking on it we have form in which name and description of current region is displayed. When we change some value in here, the changes is displayed immediately in the list. That is because we bind our element of the list, we bind its fields with input elements. We bind it using two-ways binding ngModel. So each changes in input immediately took place in element of the list and in the list also. And excuse me, I forgot to mention that we have to apply some additional CSS styles to our region edit component. It is border around all the HTML form. Then we style HTML element of the form. If it is input with type of text, we style it with some margin top, bottom radius and font size. And if it is description, we set a little bit bigger width for the element, and if it is button, we set some bigger text for it. Okay, now let's add a simple validation to our form, to one of fields of our form. For this, open template and add required property to our name text input. Also in Angular there are several additional CSS classes that allows to style the form input components appropriately according to its state. One of its classes is ng-invalid. So let's add a styling for this class to our form element. So let's try our changes out. Here is it, our regions, and if we remove completely the content of this field, we have styling according to the class that we add here. Border bottom, solid, red, 6 pixels. Let's also try to inspect this element in our developer console, in our developer panel. Here we can see that we have 3 interesting styles: ng-dirty, ng-invalid and ng-touched. The first of them we already used, ng-invalid, and this class takes place in the case when element is not fulfill the validation rules. In this case, Angular automatically set ng-invalid class to this element. Also, we can see ng-dirty. ng-dirty class is used in case if we change the value of this field. We can compare with another one. We can select the description field. Here is it, and in here we have ng-pristine class instead of ng-dirty. It means that this field value wasn't changed. And also there is ng-untouched. ng-untouched class says that we don't focus on the element and then lost the focus from the element. If we now clicked on each of the element, we can see that now second element is also ng-touched as it was the first element, and it is ng-dirty also because we already changed the value in it. In Angular framework, in template-driven approach of working with HTML form, we also have possibility to access these 6 classes that we have discussed already. We can access to it by using element ID identifier. For this we have to indicate this identifier inside our, for example, input HTML element and use ng model directive. By marking this fragment of code, we receive possibility to address by name point to some additional properties of this input element. For example, we organize the div section. It will have error class, and we will display this section only in case if we have some errors. Also, we use display style, and we will fill it to none if the name is valid or if the name is pristine. Why we have to use the second option? Because for example, the name can contain errors, it can be invalid, but the user haven't already tried to correct these mistakes, try to fill this field. In this case, we don't want to display user an error because it is not an error at all at this time. So if the field is valid and not valid and it is dirty, user tried to set some value and this value is invalid, we will show to him or her this message: name field obligatory has to be filled. So let's move on and see how it works. Okay, let's try to violate our validation rule, and here we can see our div section with the text what exactly is wrong while we filled this input HTML element. The next step is to add one more validation rule to our input HTML element. For example, for the element name of the region, we set one more rule that will check if the length of our data is not less than 4 characters. If it is less than 4 characters, we will also have validation rule. Let's see what we have in our page. Let's left 3 characters, for example, and it will be a violation of our rules, but we have a message that the name field obligatory has to be filled. The message is not correct. We wanted to receive another message that will say to us that mean length might be at least 4 characters. Let's try to correct this behavior. To correct this, we simply add one more paragraph into our div errors section, and we also add 2 ngIf constructions to each of paragraphs and check if it is errors required. We display this paragraph. Otherwise, if it is mean length violation, we display the text name field must be longer than 3 characters. And let's try it. So we have one message, and if the field is empty at all, we have another message of violation of the validation rule. Okay, now let's look on how we can check the validation of the form at all. For example, we want to disable the submit button if any one of form fields is invalid. So in this case we have to add also ID for the form. We name it region form and mark it with ng form decorator. Then using this region form we can check if the form is valid or not. So in our button, in our submit button, we used disabled input and mark it true if valid is false, and vice versa. If valid is true, disabled will be false. Let's look on the difference that take place because of our changes. For example, let's make our first form invalid. We have a message about it, and our submit button is disabled. If we make the field enable, also make the field valid, the button is enabled after these changes. Okay, it works fine, and the last part of our video will be devoted to processing of form submission. So to catch the submit event of the form, let's go up to our form tag and add here an event ng-submit, which corresponds to submission of form element. And when this event take place, we will call form submit method of our region edit component class. Also, we will pass to this method value of our region form. Okay, let's open region edit class, and here we have to realize our form submit method. This form submit method accepts one parameter. It is form with any data type. And for now we simply console log the value that comes to an input of this method. Let's look what is going on in our page. When we click submit, we have a message in our console where we can see name field of our form and description field of our form. So this is an object form values. This is an object with two parameters. Each parameter corresponds to the input field of the form. And also let's remember that for now all changes in our edit form immediately take its place in the list of regions, in the list of region elements. Let's change this behavior and make the changes be applied in the list only after submit button is clicked. To do this, we make two changes in our region edit component class. First of all, when we read element, before this we simply put the element of the list to the edit region property of our class. This way we put not values from reg const to edit region property, but we put a link of edit region to reg const that is also a link for the element of regions list. That is why changes in edit region property displays immediately in the list of regions. Instead of it, we make the following. We create a new element and fill its fields according to values of fields of element with appropriate ID. So we not put a link to the element, we created a new element with the same values of properties. After these changes in code, the changes in the element won't be immediately displayed in the list, as you can see here. And also we change our form submit event, form submit method. In it we also find, using region data service, we find the current element in the list, and in this case we take not values, we take the link to the element of the list. And after this, if we find something, we set values of properties of this list element to values of form fields that we have submitted using this method. So now if we push submit button, we have changes applied to the element of the list. But if we simply change it in the field, nothing is applied. Okay, that is all for this topic. In the next video we will consider how to work with form in Angular framework using model-driven approach. So thank you for listening and goodbye.